they breach tonight?
Hush. Save your breath.
Archers to the ridge! Ladders to the east wall! Loose! Another stone ready! Bring the shields forward!
Let it go. They're finished. Then so is the city.
You stand before the Khan of the Steppe. Your fate waits only on my word. Judgment is given this day.
Chew slow, little star. It'll keep you warm.
Taste like nothing.
Let it be nothing. Swallow. Good. Rest now. I won't let them in.
Move! Keep the line!
My child.
Forward, all of you! Shields! Keep them moving!
They're shooting again!
Push to the gate!
In the heart of the Mongolian steppe, beneath a sky that seemed carved from iron, a single name carried across the winds: Genghis Khan. To his enemies, he was not a man, he was a storm, a force that consumed nations, devoured empires, and rewrote the laws of fear itself. But what few dare to remember is that the great Khan's wars were not only fought with blades or arrows. They were fought with the human mind. He understood that terror was a weapon sharper than any sword, and he wielded it with terrifying precision. When Genghis Khan marched west in 1219 to punish the Khwarezmian Empire for betraying his envoys, the world witnessed not just conquest, but the perfection of cruelty. The first to fall were the great cities of Central Asia: Otrar, Bukhara, Samarkand, and Nishapur. Their walls stood tall, their markets full, their people proud. But pride meant nothing to the Mongols. Once surrounded, these cities became living coffins. The siege of Nishapur was no ordinary war. It was starvation turned into a weapon. The Mongols sealed every road, poisoned every well, and watched. Inside the city, time itself became an executioner. Food vanished. Rats disappeared. Bread turned to dust. Mothers fed their children strips of boiled leather, and when the leather was gone, the silence grew heavier. The Mongols didn't have to storm the gates. Hunger did their work for them. The people began to feed on the dead. Giovanni, the Persian chronicler who witnessed the aftermath, wrote that the streets were filled with bones gnawed to splinters. The dogs feasted on the flesh of the faithful. He said, when the city finally fell, those who staggered from the gates were no longer human, only shadows of what they once were. The Mongols slaughtered them all. But this was only the beginning. For Genghis Khan, victory was not enough. The world had to remember what defiance cost. After the fall of Bukhara, he gathered the surviving women and children in the main mosque. He rode his horse through the sacred halls, a deliberate insult to their faith. Then, facing the trembling prisoners, he spoke the words that became his creed. If you had not committed great sins, your God would not have sent me upon you. It was not just conquest, it was judgment. The women of conquered cities met a fate worse than death. When Bukhara fell, thousands were taken, noble women, mothers, daughters. They were paraded before the Mongol officers, ranked not by blood, but by beauty. The most beautiful were taken by the generals, some by Genghis Khan himself. The rest were divided among the soldiers or sold into slavery. Giovanni wrote that they separated the men from the women, the children from their mothers, and drove them like herds of sheep. In the ruins of cities that had once sung with poetry, now echoed only the cries of the conquered. For the Mongols, taking women was not merely reward, it was humiliation given form. To possess the women of a defeated people was to erase that people from history. In 1221, at the city of Gurganj, resistance reached its breaking point. The defenders refused to yield, fighting from rooftops and alleys. So Genghis Khan ordered something that chilled even his own men. He commanded that prisoners from nearby towns, tens of thousands of them, women, children, old men, be driven ahead of the Mongol army as living shields. They were tied together with ropes, their bodies used to absorb arrows and stones meant for Mongol warriors. They used the people of one city to batter down the next, wrote Giovanni. As siege engines advanced, the captives were crushed beneath them. Some were used to fill the moats around the city walls, turning living flesh into bridges of blood. When the walls finally fell, Garganj was reduced to ash, and the river ran red for miles. The cruelty was methodical. It was not madness, it was design. Genghis Khan believed that to rule the world, one must rule through terror. A city that heard what had happened to its neighbors might surrender before a single arrow was fired. To him, fear saved lives, Mongol lives, and that was all that mattered. But perhaps the most horrifying chapter came after the Battle of the Kalka River in 1223. The Rus princes, proud and defiant, had dared to challenge the Mongols. They were captured, and their end was devised not by rage, but by ritual. Genghis Khan had decreed that noble blood must not be spilled, so he found another way. The princes were laid face down upon the earth, their bodies forming the foundation of a wooden platform. Above them, the Mongol generals held a feast. As they laughed and drank, the weight of their bodies crushed the men beneath, slowly, silently. No blade, no fire, no blood, only suffocation beneath the feet of their conquerors. When the feast ended, so did their lives. It was not an execution. It was a message. Across his empire, Genghis Khan's punishments became legend. Traitors were tied to the tails of horses and dragged until their bodies were unrecognizable. City governors who surrendered and then rebelled were executed without mercy. The punishment was swift, public, and final. The condemned were bound, their bones broken, their faces dragged across stone until nothing remained but a trail of flesh in the dust. For the Khan, loyalty was absolute. Betrayal was the only true sin. The Mongol code of law, the Yasa, did not hide its cruelty. It celebrated it. Every punishment, every spectacle, was meant to teach obedience. The Khan understood what empires before him had not, that terror was not chaos. It was control. His world was built upon it, and through that terror he united more land than any ruler before or after him. But behind the myth of the unstoppable horde, behind the glory of empire, lay a silence, the silence of millions who never spoke again. The mothers who starved within their walls, the daughters taken as spoils, the men crushed beneath a banquet, the traitors dragged into dust. This was the true cost of conquest. And yet, the world remembers Genghis Khan as a visionary, a unifier, a strategist, a god of war. But for those who looked into the eyes of his army, he was something else entirely. He was the end, a shadow that devoured everything it touched. A man who turned hunger into a weapon, fear into law, and cruelty into history itself. Centuries later, the ruins of the cities he burned still whisper his name. The bones buried beneath Central Asia still bear his mark, and the lesson he left behind remains as cold as the steppe wind. Mercy is weakness, fear is power, and those who stand against the storm are forgotten.